Peace and welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for checking in and being with us this afternoon, folks. We got a lot of big conversations ready for you today. First, let's check in with Dr. Gerald Horne for our weekly Horne Report. He's going to give us his insight and analysis about a variety of issues, including what's going on with former President Trump with the requesting a special master and how California might be pushing the boundaries with a new law that gives them $22 an hour for fast food workers. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, we check in with Dr. Melina Abdullah, who is a professor and is the director of Black Lives Matter Grassroots here in Los Angeles, to talk to us about what's going on with the leadership and their former CEO allegedly stealing $10 million from the social justice organization. We'll have that conversation. And stay with us. We got a whole lot more to cover on today's edition. Plus, we got to talk to you as it's streaming right now, how former President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama are back in the White House to get there to be a part of the unveiling of their presidential portrait. So we got a lot to get to. Stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation today. Big shout out to my online culture crew. I know y'all rocking ready to rock and roll as we jump into these big conversations. A lot to cover as we have these discussions about everything from what's happening with the state of California to what's going on with Black Lives Matter. And then later on, we're going to have a conversation about hip hop and so much more. So stay with us. A lot to get to. But first, it is Wednesday, and every Wednesday we check in with our dear brother who is a historian. He is Morris Professor of History and African American Studies at the University of Houston. It's time now for the Horne Report. Good afternoon, Dr. Horne. How are you this afternoon, sir?
Hey, it's all good. How about you?
I am good, considering, Doc. We are doing well by the grace of the God. All right, Doc, let's jump right into it. President Trump has been making the claim that since the search and seizure of classified documents from his Mar-a-Lago residence, that he wanted to kind of intervene in requesting a quote-unquote a special master. Now, some people have said that this is a delay tactic because the Department of Justice has opened up an investigation into whether President Trump really broke the law on this whole situation. And so we were waiting to hear if the special master would be assigned to the case. And now it has been official. A special master will be assigned to the case, putting a pause on the Department of Justice investigation. But this sounds real fishy to me, Doc, and you tell me if I'm wrong. The special master that is going to be assigned to the case was appointed by the former President Trump. Talk to me a little bit about what does this mean for this high-level, very sensitive situation of the president and classified documents. Should we expect anything of substance to come out of this review by the special master?
Well, first of all, you need to realize that it's Judge Eileen Cannon in Florida, who was appointed by Mr. Trump, although her credentials are rather skimpy, to the federal bench, who has now moved forward with this idea of a special master, which is quite extraordinary, because the latest news, as reported in the Washington Post, is that mixed up in these documents that Mr. Trump stole are documents concerning some unnamed nation's nuclear secrets. Now, I wonder why Mr. Trump wanted that. Perhaps he was going to reveal, for example, to Saudi Arabia, which is not known to be a nuclear power, that the United States has information about their nuclear program. In any case, this ups the stakes with regard to what's at play, And I should also say that most legal experts felt that this Trump appointed judge really exceeded her authority, if not her judicial discretion, by appointing this special master. For example, one of the premises that she accepted is that Mr. Trump has some sort of executive privilege. Now, we had thought up until yesterday or the day before that executive privilege only attached if you were the chief executive, only if you were the president. And
Right.
then you had certain rights. But apparently, Mr. Trump is an ex-president who can still have the rights of a sitting president. This is quite ominous. It suggests what some have suspected all along, that the level of justice you receive depends upon the judge. I recall that Mr. Trump's mentor, the late attorney Roy Cohn, used to say when he went into court, I don't want to know what the law is. Just tell me who the judge is, because then he would figure out a way to get to the judge. Now, that's not supposed to be the way that it works, and it's not supposed to be the way the rule of law works. Keep in mind as well that Mr. Trump's former Attorney General, William Barr, who you recall helped to bail Mr. Trump out during the time of the investigation led by special counsel Robert Mueller. Mr. Barr thought that this decision by Judge Cannon was a bit much. He thinks the Justice Department should appeal, but the Justice Department may not appeal. You know why? Because they would appeal it to a higher court, the Circuit Court of Appeals, which, you guessed it, is stuffed with Trump judicial appointees. This is where we've landed in the United States today.
So that's why we're posing the question, is Trump getting special privileges, even in a situation that could lead to some very serious consequences? He's still kind of getting the pass. He still kind of keeps his protection around him. He still keeps the name, it sounds like, Doc, of Teflon Don, because he's being surrounded by people who's making sure that he's not going to get the full brunt of the consequences that he deserves on this.
Well, you are correct. And obviously, we have two standards of law in the United States today, one for Mr. Trump, another for everyone else. And keep in mind as well that quite dangerously, not only Mr. Trump, but his wingman, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, have in a sense suggested that if these judicial proceedings targeting Mr. Trump do not evolve in the way they deem to be kosher, then there'll be riots in the streets. And so that is quite intimidating, I'm afraid to say, to the Justice Department, because the Justice Department, which endured January 6th, does not want to see a replay. So this
how does that happen, Doc? How does the Justice Department get pimped by a former president?
I think that they're intimidated by the fact that Mr. Trump got 75 million votes in November 2020. Mr. Trump actually won the majority of the so-called white vote. And that, in a nation based on white supremacy, is no minor detail. And so I think that the Justice Department is treading carefully. Obviously, it's exposing this so-called democracy that we're enduring in the United States of America. But that's the way it is, and apparently that's the way it's going to be.
Folks, we're asking the question, is Trump getting special privileges? Share your thoughts. Hit us up on our YouTube and Facebook pages as we have this conversation with Dr. Gerald Horne, who's given us the Horne Report today. Do you think he's getting special privileges? I think so. He's been afforded a lot of leniency on this situation. And back to the point that you just made, Doc, about the fact that some of these documents, first, those 48 boxes of empty boxes that were found, and then they found these other set of documents where, had nuclear information and nuclear codes for foreign governments. It's like, where's the accountability? And now you're saying that, and I've heard this as well, but of course, the intimidation, the fear that, that there's going to be some sort of retaliation, because a lot of these, and I've said this before, Doc, and you mentioned this, but just for a reminder, a lot of these militias, pro-white groups, as much as they don't like other people, they have a real problem with government in general. And so there's this unexpected pushback. And I'm just wondering, like, I remember hearing President Biden say last week, and I thought this was fascinating. He made the point that he said, you think you got your little gun, but he said, you're going up against the United States of America. You better have an F-15. This is what the president said. He said, you better have an F-15 with your little gun if you come up against this. So I'm wondering, never heard that from a president talking about some of his own citizens. But I'm wondering on this, Dr. Horn, is this going to be like the prelude for a real showdown between the government of the United States and some of these white supremacist groups and these like, white militias?
I'm afraid it might go in that direction. You know that just a few days ago in the state of Michigan, you had these militiamen who were convicted of seeking to kidnap, possibly execute Governor Gretchen Whitmer. We also know that the police departments in many cities across the nation have been thoroughly infiltrated by the ultra-right. They're so bold that they even have Facebook pages talking about how they don't like Black people. The same allegation has been made with regard to the US military. And when Mr. Biden made that notorious comment about you better have more than a gun when you come up against our F-15, speaking of the United States government's F-15s, what I was thinking at the time is that there might be a case where some of these pilots of F-15s are part of the militia. So this is a very dangerous and ominous situation in which we find ourselves.
Hey, and here's what this is what I thought was interesting, Dr. Horn. I just read a piece, and I believe it's from either New York Times or Washington Post, where they had this leaked like membership list of Oath Keepers that had just dropped. And they had found that out of about 38,000, and I think the Anti-Defamation League and other groups were kind of going through this document, out of about 38,000 members, right now they can say definitively that at least 300 plus people are part of law enforcement and are currently in public office or were in public office. And then you got people who are sheriffs and deputies, you got Congress people, and it opens the door for that. So for the idea that you might have somebody in government who is a pilot, who is inclined to Oath Keepers, Mr. Trump's view of the world, it's not far-fetched to me. It's not far-fetched.
It's not far-fetched at all. I mean, keep in mind that if you look at those who participated in the attempted coup of January 6, 2021, they were disproportionately comprised of police officers, retired and on duty. In fact, the man who just received the longest sentence thus far as a result of the attempted insurrection was a New York City police officer who was part of the security detail under former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg. You had a disproportionate percentage of military veterans as well. And so if you look at the history of coups, which I'm afraid we're going to have to do nowadays, you'll find that overwhelmingly they're executed by members of the military. You may recall, or at least have seen video of the coup that took place in South America, in Chile, September 11th, 1973, where the presidential palace was bombed by fighter jets, not under the direction of the president. The president was the one being bombed because the fighter pilots decided to go rogue. And this is the sort of danger, I'm afraid to say, we may be facing in this country.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me go to Mike V very quickly on this topic, and we try to get one more in for Dr. Horn. Mike said, look, they had to perform an information security audit prior to Trump leaving office to know he had access to top secret clearance documentation. Many in his cabinet were given access when shouldn't have. That's part of the concern that I think a lot of people have, especially DOJ, is that this access is not just for him, but they may have gotten access to other DOJ members. And so, you really have a situation here, Doc, where there are some folks in the government right now, like the government has been infiltrated rather. You know what I mean? There are some very, very real concerns about this, and it's hard to say who is with who at this point.
Well, that's what's so dangerous nowadays, because it's apparent that the United States has been whistling past the graveyard. We've been fed this propaganda that this antiquated 18th century Constitution is the last word in terms of constitution making, that supposedly it created this sturdy democracy. But now we're coming to realize that a lot of what we were taught and a lot of what we were told was fantasy. But the problem is that a number of people don't want to come to grips with that reality because they prefer to be comforted by fiction. But I'm afraid to say that fiction can get you killed.
Damn. Speaking of Constitution, Doc, very quickly, I wanted to get, an expert voice on this. I brought it up yesterday when we were talking about civil rights leaders meeting with the president last week. But, making a point that while that might be happening and Black folks being told, wait and see and hope, vote, wait, see, hope, and vote. You know what I'm saying? You got people on the other side of the aisle who are organizing to try to fundamentally uproot with some of the key principles of this country. The Republicans have called out on putting together a convention, a Constitution convention. And I know this goes under the radar for a lot of people. I know I'm bringing it to the forefront because I see problems in this, Doc. I really, really see some issues with this. Talk to us about this. First thing, is this even possible? Can this happen where we have a second constitutional convention in 2022 or 2023?
It's possible. I would like to think it's unlikely.
Okay.
Why I would like to think it's unlikely is because if there's a constitutional convention, everything is on the table. Now, I don't want to sound like an alarmist, but the fact of the matter is that given what we know about the other side, they may try to repeal the 13th Amendment, which outlawed slavery, for example. You have many Republicans who do not like the way that women have been voting of late, particularly in light of the Dobbs decision, which tended to outlaw abortion. And then you had the vote in the state of Kansas, where Kansas women turned out in droves to try to overturn the local impact of the Dobbs decision. Well, they could overturn the right of women to vote. Women's suffrage only arrived in this country about a century ago, and then it was only white women. So this is a very perilous maneuver that the Republicans are seeking to execute. And despite my previous criticism of the US Constitution, I think we should hold on to it, particularly in light of the fact that whatever positive aspects it has, the Republicans would like to toss overboard.
Right. And so it opens up the door, though, that there are some real that the motives and the way that the Republicans are moving, and I will say this, the way the Republicans are moving, they're not playing by the same rules, Doc. They're not playing by the same rules that I think the Black leaders are moving. Their rules of engagement is we're going to take power by any means necessary. And I think for us, our rule of engagement is let's work within the boundaries, let's color within the lines, and let's see what we can get. And that concerns me, like deeply, deeply concerns me, because I feel like it's out of time, out of step, especially when a lot of us, but I'm saying Black folks in this country, even other communities, are seeking some sort of relief from this trampling of civil and human rights right now.
Well, I think Mr. Biden, interestingly enough, put it well at his speech in Philadelphia a few days ago, where he suggested that the Republican principle with regard to elections is either A, the Republicans won, or B, the Democrats cheated in order to deprive the Republicans of a well-earned victory. In other words, it's heads they win, tails we lose. And that's not the way the system is supposed to work. But that is, as you correctly suggested, the principle on which they're operating. And like yourself, I'm quite concerned about our leadership, who I'm not sure have an answer to this very perilous and dangerous turn that the right wing has made. I'm afraid to say that they're still operating as if we're in 1968, when actually it seems to me that we've gone far beyond 1968.
Come on, Doc. Come on, Doc. That's how I'm feeling. I'm telling you. If we're still using tactics from 1968 to address issues in 2022, we got a real problem. We got a real problem. So here's my final question as we wrap up this part of the discussion: is the move, and I heard some people have been saying is like we can't operate from the same vantage point that Republicans and others against our interests are operating from. Is that true? When they get low, Doc, when they get low, can we go lower?
Well, I think so. I think we have to. But we may not reach that point, but we should keep that in mind as we proceed down this road. What I mean is that we have a majority in the world who are in favor of us, who are against the Republicans and against Trump. The problem, as I've said before on the culture, is that I'm not sure if the leadership either knows how to or is prepared to operate internationally. But given the correlation of forces domestically, given the fact, as I said, that Mr. Trump won the white vote in 2020, may win it again in 2024, certainly may win it in a few weeks from now on the first Tuesday in November. We need a different strategy, but somehow that hasn't dawned on many of our leaders.
Very much so. Dr. Gerald Horns, the Morse Professorship of African American Studies and History at the University of Houston. He's also a very notable author and scholar. Dr. Horn, it's always a pleasure, and I'm greatly honored to have you as part of the team here on The Culture. And God willing, we'll be reconnecting with you next Wednesday for another session of the Horn Report. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's check in with Dr. Melina Abdullah of Black Lives Matter Grassroots LA to give us the latest about this latest scandal that BLM is facing, where their former CFO has allegedly stolen $10 million. We'll be checking in with Dr. Melina to get her take on what's going on and the impact that it makes on the movement. Stay with us. That conversation is coming up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
But a lot of stuff that we're not getting, you get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We wanted to shift gears to talk about what's happening internationally and with the government to now what's happening with one of our premier organizations for social justice, Black Lives Matter. Now it has been confirmed through the Black Lives Matter grassroots movement led by Dr. Melina Abdullah here in Los Angeles, and how the fact that now one of the big issues is that their former CFO there's allegedly saying that he is responsible for stealing $10 million that have come from donors that were supposed to be used for programs and other efforts to move the Black Lives Matter agenda further along. Now we're looking at an issue of leadership being able to have access to this money and then not using it the proper way. Now, we want to check in. We wanted to get the full story, get an understanding of the implications of this, not just on this organization, but on the larger movement of police reform and accountability, on the larger movement for social justice. So we're joined now by Dr. Melina Abdullah, who is the director for Black Lives Matter Grassroots in Los Angeles, California. Dr. Melina, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, Doc. Absolutely. Always a pleasure. And you always got a platform here. So give us some of the latest details around this, because one of the things that when you guys had your presser last week, you talked about how there was an issue of this former CFO who was able to pretty much find a mechanism to steal millions of dollars from donors. As a result of that, that has put Black Lives Matter Grassroots and other programs in a position of great vulnerability, and at the same time has added more criticism to the movement that BLM is on the forefront of. Talk to us about this whole situation, Doc.
Right. So this person, whose name is Shalomia Bowers, was hired as a consultant to the Global Network Foundation. And people are going, what's that? Well, the Global Network Foundation was chartered by our co-founder, Patrisse Cullors, in order to kind of receive these donations that were coming in and then make sure that they went to the work on the ground. When Patrisse stepped back in May of 2021, this guy, Shalomia Bowers, was left kind of with all of the legal mechanisms to control Black Lives Matter. So that includes not just the money, it includes the money. And we know that he granted himself or contracted himself $2.2 million in a single reporting period. We estimate that the total misappropriation has been about $10 million. And
Wow.
so it's the dollars, and it's more than the dollars. It's also the platforms. So people follow BLK Lives Matter on Instagram. We have more than 4 million followers. That was the platform that I used to go live from protests with, that we would go live to talk about the murder of Dante Wright. It was the platform where we would post, where as we go to trial for justice for Andrew Joseph III in Tampa, we would put those posts there so that our followers and those who believe in Black Lives Matter could know what's going on. He changed the passwords on all of the accounts, locking us out of our own platforms. And then they're misrepresenting themselves as Black Lives Matter to different organizations, to the government. Whenever they reach out to Black Lives Matter, they're getting now these highly paid consultants rather than the real organizers with Black Lives Matter. So this is a theft of the resources, the dollars, as well as the platforms and the good name. And so we intend to fight and to get it back. We filed a lawsuit and we're going public. We tried to settle things quietly, but it's saddening and disheartening and also outrageous that we weren't able to get him to come to the table. And so now we have to go public, which again damages the name of Black Lives Matter, but we can't simply let him run off with the donors' contributions. Those donors include my mother. And, we're not going to let them run off with what we built over the last 9.5 years.
So Dr. Molina, talk to us about the vetting process. When Patrice brought him on to be a consultant, were you a part of that decision? And if you weren't a part of that decision, how was he vetted? Was there any sense that, there was something that he had done something like this in the past?
So I've never been on the Global Network Foundation side of things. I've never worked for them, never been on their board.
Okay.
When was in charge, she and I used to communicate very regularly because we've been friends for a very long time. However, I was not a part of bringing on Bowers. What she said, because we'd had issues with a previous consultant that she brought on, what she assured those of us who were on the grassroots side of things is that this person, Bowers, is nothing like the previous contractor, that he doesn't want to be in front of the camera. He's not, trying to usurp the movement on the ground. And so that's the assurance that she gave. But I wasn't a part of that process and had no authority and no role in hiring him or contracting with him. What we're finding out now, as people are hearing this story, is I'm getting all kinds of emails and DMs on my personal social media of people who said that they have been through this with him before.
So this is so they just never came public. It became public. Like once you guys brought it public, then now you're starting to hear more voices saying, "Hey, this guy does shady stuff with other people's money."
Yes, dating back to 2010 is
wow.
What we're hearing. And he's only 29 years old. So this means that this is what he's been doing since he was a teenager. If we believe the folks who are, and it's multiple folks who are letting us know that this is not the first time. Of course, this is the biggest fish, right? That he, when you talk about tens of millions of dollars, this is the biggest one. But others have been cheated out of $5,000 here, $20,000 there.
So talk to us about, now, it sounded like, based on some of the reports around this, Dr. Molina, is that he got some beef with you too.
Well, we know that it's a diversion tactic, that when the truth comes to light, rather than addressing the issue at hand, which is the theft of, again, tens of millions of dollars, the theft of our social media platforms and our good name, rather than addressing those things, they want to divert the conversation and really make it about me. This is not about me. This is not even my lawsuit. This is the Black Lives Matter grassroots lawsuit, which represents 26 official chapters all around the globe, which includes thousands of members. That's the lawsuit. And so instead of making it about the movement versus highly paid consultants, they want to zero in on me and, say, well, they don't like my personality or my leadership style. But if you go back,
he said that. He said that unprincipled decision making, a leadership style rooted in retribution and intimidation, and claiming that you were the one who committed financial malfeasance.
Right. And these are anonymous quotes, and every journalist, you're a journalist, knows that if it's quotable, it shouldn't be anonymous, right? And so it's important that people look into my track record. And, at our press conference, we had over 70 folks standing alongside me. So again, this is not my lawsuit. This is a Black Lives Matter grassroots lawsuit, which I feel very blessed and fortunate to be a part of. I think that anyone who knows me knows my track record. And again, this is, I would put my reputation and my track record up against anyone, and especially someone like Shalomia Bowers, right? I am somebody who feels called to movement. I believe that it's my sacred duty. I'm not trying to make my money off of the movement. And so we shouldn't let our eyes be diverted because they're throwing everything that they can at the wall. Again, much bigger than me. This is about saving the soul of Black Lives Matter and returning the movement's resources to the people who built and birthed and continue to fuel it.
Absolutely. I want to bring in a couple of voices from our online culture crew because folks are checking in and sharing their thoughts on this. Let's go to Janelle. Janelle, you brought up the point. You said the movement was never tainted. It was the leading people in their disorganization. The fact that they never took the step to license their brand set them up for corruption and theft. How do you think that was part of why, when it comes to the money issue with BLM, that's part of the reason that it was never fully, like, I guess in the words of Janelle, talking about license or incorporated, or there wasn't that level of organization?
So to be very clear, the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation was chartered as a 501c3 organization. It did not protect it from this theft. And so we also need to remember that Black Lives Matter is a movement. We are not, we weren't birthed to be a corporation. We were birthed to challenge corporations, to challenge government, to challenge unjust systems of policing and prisons. And that's what we are. And so it's important to remember that. And then lastly, I'll just say that this individual has gone so far as to use these legal mechanisms to really steal the movement. So he's used them for his own purposes. It's not the movement that has benefited from these kinds of licensings, right? Yeah. We know tried to trademark Black Lives Matter grassroots, which again is something that we birthed. He illegally, unjustly, unethically did that. And so I don't see what else we could have done to prevent this from happening. I do know that we're fighters, we're freedom fighters, we're organizers, and we're going to fight with everything that we have to get our movement's resources back. And everybody who's watching can help us do that. We have an open letter that's at tinyurl.com/open-letter-to-GNF, tinyurl.com/open-letter-2 GNF. GNF is for Global Network Foundation.
Absolutely. Truth is Power said, the problem that I found with Black Lives Matter as a group, they didn't have any bylaws set up or guidelines to go by. If I'm wrong, correct me. Too many hands in the money jar, not all, just some.
So there are bylaws. So the Global Network Foundation, again, is a 501c3. And so they do have bylaws. The problem is transparency, that no one has seen bylaws. No one knew that Bowers had access to all of these legal mechanisms. And to be very clear, and I think that most of your viewers and you know that most of us who are in this movement make the bulk of our money with other jobs. So I'm an
Right.
educator.
No doubt.
So to kind of act like we're employees is false. We're not employees of Black Lives Matter. So that kind of work is not the work that we consume ourselves with. The work we consume ourselves with is a justice work. So we're headed to Tampa next week to struggle for justice in the name of Andrew Joseph III and end qualified immunity. So those are the things that we've been occupying ourselves with. And
Yeah.
Global Network Foundation is a 501c3. It does have bylaws, and we believe he violated those bylaws.
Absolutely. Jawan checked in. Jawan and Vet, you said it's a shame the greed of certain individuals has caused people to question the movement. I found myself in debates with my own skin folk about the validity of Black Lives Matter because of this, and it makes me sad. It certainly makes me sad too when I, listen to what y'all had to say last week, and then just reflecting on all of the onslaught of criticisms and that we often see around BLM. And then, of course, by you coming on to this show, you make the distinctions. Hey, there's the foundation, there's the grassroots, there are different things under the Black Lives Matter sign. But it's hard, it's disheartening, it's heartbreaking that, a movement that was really designed, like you said, to bring awareness to issues of police reform and accountability, a movement that really stood on the idea, the very premise that Black lives matter, that we need to be affirmed, and that through policy and through other actions, it's like it gets all of that gets convoluted in the conversation, Doc. It's very, very sad, and it makes me wonder, for a moment, I get to that space like, damn, can Black people just live? You know what I'm saying? Can we just get something? And as much as we try to glorify the civil rights movement, we try to add the sparkles and the sprinkles to make that a glorious movement. I can only imagine with SCLC, with SNCC, with the NAACP, with the Nation of Islam, all of these organizations trying to work to a common goal of Black liberation had to endure from other Black people, Black people to get to that place. I know you got something to give us, something to hold on to with that, Doc.
I do. And I want to say, this is a moment, right? This is a moment where we're sad, where we are feeling the weight of this, right? It's not I always say I could fight white supremacists and police all day long, but when it comes from the inside, that's what eats me up. That's what keeps me up at night, right? This is difficult. This is one of the hardest places I've ever been, right? Fight for the soul of Black Lives Matter, but we have to fight for the soul of Black Lives Matter. And I think that now is not the time for people to jump out the fight. It's time for more people to jump in the fight. We need you to jump in the fight and say, you know what? We're not going to let highly paid consultants who make millions of dollars off of our literal blood, sweat, and tears. Standing alongside us on Thursday were the families of Dante Wright and the family of Grishario Mack. Standing alongside of us was Dr. Yusef Salam of the exonerated Central Park Five, right? Standing alongside us was young activist Tiana Arata, who's still facing charges after rising up in 2020, right? And so we're all in this fight. It was built on our blood, sweat, and tears. And so we have to reclaim what belongs to us. So what we want to invite people to do is get down with Black Lives Matter Grassroots. We need you to follow us on social media at BLM Grassroots. We're rebuilding new social media platforms. We went from 4 million followers to now we got like 1,800 followers. We need to grow that number, BLM Grassroots. And it's not so that we can have followers. It's so that we can communicate, so that you can hear from us what we're doing, because we're not stopping the work. We're not stopping the work. We're continuing the work. We're going at it as hard as we can, whether there's cameras there, whether there's social media there, whether we have dollars behind us or not. I'm one of the original members of Black Lives Matter. When we started, we didn't have a dollar, right? When we started, there was no social media. And so it's important to understand that we intend to win this battle. But regardless of where we are right now, we're going to fight because our children and our people deserve a world that is where they don't have targets on their backs. And so we need everybody to jump in the fight alongside us, jump in the fight with us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that it's important that we note that in spite of all of these trials and tribulations that BLM has been going through over the past couple of years, that BLM is still highly regarded as being one of the premier organizations for social justice. Take a look at this, folks. According to a Pew Research, this was done a few days ago, before this news, unfortunate news about the leadership and money, but Pew Research Center released a report summing up the opinions of Black Americans, specifically our thoughts about racial inequality and the prospects, for systemic social change. It found, among other things, that 4 in 10 of us believe Black Lives Matter has done the most to help Black people in recent years. Just 17% named the NAACP. An additional 13% chose Black churches. Just a mere, let me make sure I'm getting my facts, just 6% picked the Congressional Black Caucus, and a mere 3% pointed to the National Urban League. In fact, across all of the demographic subgroups Pew surveyed, the highly educated and the less educated, the rich and the poor, the left-leaning and the right-leaning, the registered and unregistered to vote, Black Lives Matter was their top choice.
And that's
wow.
by far, it's double that, more than double that of any other organization. I don't think that this current fight, we'll take a hit reputationally, but I think, the mantra I live by is just do the work and live as righteously as possible. And so I think that our work will speak for itself. It's our work that has won the trust of the people. It's our work that people are behind. And so we're going to just do the work. And so I hope that people who are in Tampa will join us September 12th to the 23rd as we say that we're going to uplift the name and the spirit of Andrew Joseph III, who was just 14 years old when he was killed as a result of sheriff's misconduct. And it's taken 8.5 years for his family to get the day in court, right? I hope people will be with us. I hope that people remain with us as we work to build in Buffalo, where it's only been a few months since our folks were slaughtered inside that Tops grocery store. I hope that people are with us as we directly challenge, where I'm on my way to right now is our weekly protest in Los Angeles, where we challenge police associations who bully and bribe elected officials, pilfer the public purse, and protect killer and abusive cops. And so our work continues, and I think that will maintain, when we do righteous work, it will maintain the trust of the people. Don't let one terrible usurper, don't let one terrible person who has no moral compass derail the movement. We just have to reclaim the movement as belonging to the people.
Dr. Molina, as we wrap up this conversation, I know many people are wondering what's next. I know Robin, who checked in, she said, who is responsible for doing the checks and balances? Where were the accountants' internal control procedures to prevent this? So in that vein and in that line, in that same sentiment, what's next? You brought this to the forefront. People are talking about it. Shalom Bowers is trying to debate his role and change the narrative or whatever the case may be. But for BLM grassroots, BLM as a foundation, BLM as the organization, what's next?
What's next is we keep doing the work. What's next is we build. Please follow BLM Grassroots. What's next is we get back what belongs to the people who built birthed and fueled this movement. What's next is fighting for justice, ending qualified immunity. And so we need you to jump in it. I've said to my comrades on Black Lives Matter grassroots side of things is, we know that the clean glass of water, and that's interesting now that we're also talking about what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi. If you put next to each other, side by side, a dirty glass of water and a clean glass of water, the people will choose the clean glass of water, right? And Black Lives Matter grassroots intends and is committed to being the clean glass of water. We do have checks and balances. We are motivated by movement, not money. We are a collective leadership structure, and we are righteously fighting for the freedom and liberation of Black people, and by extension, everybody else. And so I'm very grateful to you, Brother Farajii, for having me on and for all amplifying this work.
Absolutely. And I just want to make sure that folks know that I'm sure that this is going to, as of right now, it sounds like it's going to be going into court. Am I correct in my understanding of that, Doc?
Yes, it's a lawsuit. And I always believe in the possibility that people will change. And so we're also, what that open letter is, right? tinyurl.com/open letter, 2 GNF. My hope and prayer is that Bowers and the people who are propping him up will change their minds and say, you know what, this isn't right. Let's return the resources to the people. And so that's what the open letter is about. We hope to avoid court. We don't want to waste, these legal fights are a waste of people's money, but we can't let them steal the resources of the movement.
Absolutely. And I know people are wondering, does Black Lives Matter grassroots want to see full prosecution? Would you like to see Bowers in prison as a result of this?
Well, we're an abolitionist organization, so we did not go to attorneys general. We did not go to police and say arrest them. We're not gonna call for imprisonment. It may happen, but that's not something that we've directly called for. It may happen when you commit certain acts. We don't know what will be done, but that's not something we've called for.
Absolutely. All right, Dr. Melina Abdullah, it's always a pleasure and a real honor to continue to talk to you about these issues, and particularly what's going on inside the walls of Black Lives Matter. As we are still, folks have a lot of, I always say every time we have these conversations, folks always can say what they want to say, but to hear directly from one of the key members and founders that's doing the work and is actually out there, that's a whole different story. So we truly appreciate you. Can you put out that URL for folks to check out, and if they want to show their support, how they can support?
Sure. Again, the letter is tinyurl.com/open letter, 2 GNF. tinyurl.com/open letter, 2 GNF.
Absolutely. Dr. Melina Abdullah, who was a tenured professor. She is also an author. She's also an activist, an advocate, speaker, and she is the director of Black Lives Matter Grassroots here in Los Angeles. Doc, thank you so much for your time. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk a little bit about hip hop. There is another conversation, not just about the music itself, but lyrics. And so the question is being asked, should violent lyrics that describe doing violent acts or illegal activities, should that be used against hip hop artists when they are in court? We will check in with Jimmy Thomas Jr., who is the founder of Curators of Hip Hop, to give us his analysis. And of course, we want to bring you into that discussion. Plus, we're going to check in, and as part of our Trends Post and Doing the Most, we got a couple of updates around it. And one of the big updates is the Obamas are back in the White House for the unveiling of their presidential portrait. So we'll show you a little bit of that footage as well. So stay with us. A lot to get to in the next hour of the culture right here on the Black Star Network. Stay with us.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
All right, folks, welcome to the second hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Man, oh man, what a great first hour we've had here on the show. Check in, of course, with Dr. Gerald Horn. It's Wednesday, so you can make sure y'all check him out every Wednesday, God willing, at for our first segment, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for the Horn Report. And then we also had a chance to talk to Dr. Melina Abdullah, who is the director and tenured professor, but she serves as the director of Black Lives Matter Grassroots, to talk to us about the latest scandal about their former CFO, the alleging possible stealing of money, $10 million of donor money. So we had that conversation just to clear up any type of fog around that situation. But more importantly, folks, these are just two of the many conversations that we've been having on this show. And that's why we have always put it out there to make sure that you continue your support for Black Star Network. We are moving forward and we are fastly approaching that, having the operation as a 24-hour streaming platform, a platform that will offer a diverse programs, a number of diverse shows here on the platform, from everything from lifestyle to technology, to, you know, I know Brother Roland talked about he's going to look to get a cooking show, and even another daily show to be added to the roster of what you can check out each and every day. So make sure y'all check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure that you do your part of supporting us, because we need financial donations. But even if you said, I can't necessarily give financially, share the content as we continue to stream. You know, we are streaming constantly. My big shout out to my guy, King Keenan, who is always working hard, in the production team that is always working hard to make sure that we keep you up to date on some of the big stories and big happenings around the country. So again, check us out at blackstarnetwork.com to sign up for free, to download the app, to tell your friends and family about it. And let's continue to support Black-owned media that tell our story and that will plead our case. Folks, for this next conversation, I wanted to talk about hip hop. Now, we have always had debates. I know there have been barbershop and beauty salon debates, and it seems like hip hop is always out there in the forefront in terms of the content that is being put out there. And there are the ongoing debates about who is the best and which artist is capturing the ears of the next generation. But one thing is for certain, that when hip hop artists speak, people tend to listen. And it's not just young people, it's not just hip hop heads, but even the law. Yeah, folks, law enforcement. and the prosecutor and those who work in the court system. This is an interesting turn of events here, folks. So it's, you know, and check this out. In a recent case that's being handled right now in Atlanta in May, following the arrest, and I want y'all to take us out in Ariel and Keenan, if we can post this. I want to bring you up to date on something that has why this conversation about lyrics and hip hop has been brought to the forefront. In May, following the arrest of Atlanta's Young Thug and Gunna, a 56 and count indictment showed that Fonnie Willis, who helms the Fulton County Prosecutor's Office, this is a Black woman, she talks about including the artist's lyrics among sweeping allegations that they violated the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, RICO, the RICO Act, folks. Among those cited with the Thugger lyrics, "I'm prepared to take them down, and I never killed anybody, but I got something to do with that body." Now, Willis, again, a Black woman, she said that she would be leaning on lyrics in another RICO case prosecuting 26 alleged members of the Drug Rich Gang, who are charged with kidnapping, armed robbery, shootings, and high-profile home invasions. She said, quote, "I think if you decide to admit your crimes over a beat, I'm going to use it." Deflecting criticism, she said, "I'm not targeting anyone, but however, you do not get to commit crimes in my county and then decide to brag on it." She added, "I have some legal advice. Don't confess to crimes on rap lyrics if you do not want them used." Woo! Ooh. So, folks, it opened up the door and the conversation about the power of lyrics, not just in shaping people's view of themselves and the world, but also the power of lyrics in terms of determining whether a person is innocent or guilty. Wow. And I want to get your take on this, you know, this conversation. Should rap lyrics be used against artists when they find themselves in court? Should that be a part of a prosecutor's case? Make sure y'all post your comments on our social media pages, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere, and let us know what do you think should happen in this. Now, I wanted to bring someone into this conversation that I thought who can speak intelligently about this. We just didn't want to get an artist, but we wanted to get somebody who understood the power, the importance, and the influence of the culture. So I checked in and I got my brother, Jimmy Thomas Jr., who is doing a fantastic work. He serves as the founder of Curators of Hip Hop, COHH. And the work that they're doing is not just talking about hip hop, but they're teaching about the history. They're helping the next generation to learn how to use hip hop as a form of expression, but most importantly, educating us all in various capacities about the power of the spoken word. Jimmy, I want to thank you so much, brother, for taking time out your busy schedule to be with us this afternoon. How you feeling today?
Hey, I'm good. Let me get my camera straight so I can look
good. Get your camera straight, bro.
Hey, man. Yo, it's a blessing to be here, and but it's unfortunate we here talking about this situation because, you know, as you said, you know, my company Curators of Hip Hop, we highlight the elements of hip hop internationally, and then we created a youth initiative for young people in Baltimore City to be able to use hip hop culture to express themselves. And a lot of times what we realize is that our young people don't have an opportunity to express themselves, and sometimes, you know, what they are expressing is what they're going through in their communities. That's what hip hop has been based on.
Right. I never forget Chuck D famously said, Jimmy, you know, hip hop is the CNN of the hood.
Yeah, man.
You know, and so when you talking to these young brothers who's telling their story, they're not always talking from first person. They may be telling the story of their brother or cousin or friend. They're just using their voice as a way to amplify certain things that are going on in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
But now we know that part. And I think that's one of the powers of this, right? Giving people an opportunity to express themselves. But then there's this other part. And Jimmy, you and I have had conversations about this, and I know you've been in ongoing discussions about this on the national, international spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes what you say, it really does determine someone's future. That someone has a view of not just you, not just the neighborhood, but they have a view of things that are happening in your life. People start to believe you, right? Especially these young brothers and sisters. You talk about shooting and killing, selling and doing. Somebody's gonna be like, "Oh man, he really doing that.
Yeah,
he really doing that."
yeah.
So talk to us about that level of influence, bro, before we jump into the legal side of things.
Yeah. So prime example, Tekashi 6ix9ine. He he rapping and talking about this culture that he was never in. And the gang decided to take him in because he was hot and he was profitable for them. He was famous. He was getting a lot of looks, so they wanted the looks and the money. And at the end of the day, they got more than they bargained for by allowing this person in to talk about their lifestyle, and he ended up telling on everybody, and then still out making money. It's unfortunate right now, Young Thug and his crew, they got 28 members of this music organization, who the attorney general feels like it's a crime organization. And it may be true, may be true. They're in Atlanta. That's what they're saying in their music, but they're using that music against them. And it's been a lot of legal battle over this. And unfortunately, he's definitely going to be made an example of. Because I don't know if you know Farajii, but they had an indictment on him before, and they dropped that case and brought it back with this one, right?
No.
So they're trying to make sure, that this is concrete. It's not looking good. The judge didn't even give him a bond. Think about that. Who doesn't get bonds? Murderers, who doesn't get a bond? And this is America. You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but it ain't looking too good.
No, it ain't looking too good. And I think part of the reason why it's not looking too good is, one, because of who he is, right?
Yeah.
The power that he had, the power that he wields. Two, I mean, I'm going back to what the Fulton County prosecutor said. You're gonna rap about it, then you better be prepared to pay for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, from a brother like yourself who studied this, who teach this, who is a fan of the culture, like is this good? Because now if you start to, I can only imagine Pandora's box being open if you start to use lyrics against artists.
Right.
And because not only now will the artists be found guilty, then you gotta really look at the record companies who is, quote unquote, allowing this, who's amplifying these stories and these lyrics. You got to go after them as well too. You can't just leave it to the little black artists.
The record companies are brilliant, though. They'll hire a third party record label to sign these artists so they can wash their hands of the responsibility. Well, I didn't know. I hired such and such label, and that's just a label under me. That's their artist. I'm funding that label, so you would have to really go deep into trying to figure out how to go after the labels, who are also in bed with the judges. We're talking about billionaires here now, Farajii. So, they plan and plotted how to not be in the thick of it, how not to get their hands dirty, of course, which is, unfortunate, but it's also smart. You can't knock them, it's also smart. But then there's also people who's willing to profit off of that. You think about, I think what she's trying to do is get ahead of the drill music before it hits Atlanta, because it hit Chicago, it's in New York heavy, and Atlanta is a black metropolitan. They want to be able to keep it the way that they look at it and they deem it is for progressive black people in order to come there. Because when you start going after rappers for their lyrics, then, are you going after other artists? Are you going after the country singers for talking about drinking and shooting, their stepfathers, even or their dads or whatever, No, they not, so you ain't gotta think about it, they not. But at the same time, we as people have to be more mindful of what's going on. Luther Campbell, fought in order to get lyrics placed on songs long time ago, early 80s. Now you got parental control on CDs, not CDs no more, but on music, because of him fighting and going to federal court for that, because people didn't like what he was saying. And now here's the trickle effect. Now it's legal, so if you're talking about it, unfortunately, being real is going to take you too far. Tekashi 6ix9ine, we knew from the beginning, was not that. But other people felt like he was. And when he got arrested, it was shown he was who we thought he was. And,
And he's still living, bro.
He's still living, got security, federal government security, getting paid, while the people he was with is locked up and not making any money at all. Yeah.
Hey, and I'm not implying anything crazy. I'm just saying it's just the craziness of the circumstances. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like he was an informant in a case that speaks to the RICO Act. So how do you see this playing out? I mean, as one who studies and teaches all of this, do you think that this is fair?
Man. So I'm looking at it from two different ways, Farajii, right? As a practitioner of the culture, heck nah, it's not fair. It's not. It's just not. Is once again poking, at a culture that always gets his voice muzzled, right? And then I'm looking at it from a father and an educator to a lot of kids. It's a lesson to be learned. It's okay to talk about what's going on in your community, but figure out better ways to do it, because you're telling on yourself.
But see, Jimmy, like if you grew up in a culture at a time like I grew up listening to hip hop in the 90s, right? So there was certain, I mean, and I would like to believe that the street code kind of permeated into the music code, right? Like you don't say what type of dirt you did in the street, so why would you put it on wax, right? And I often heard. Say it again.
Do it in third person. Trick got a song called 1020 Life where he talk about a young man from adolescence growing up missing his father because his father in the system, and then he having to take care of the family. Then the second verse is the young man getting out there in the streets and making a life for himself. And then the third verse is, about the young man getting incarcerated because he went and got the person that robbed him. Now that's a street storyteller. That's an orator, right? That is what we've always had. And he's telling a story in the third person. Now, that's the way to go about doing it. Don't say I did.
But see, that's not the culture though.
You're right. You're right. The culture is
no, and I'm saying that, and I'm saying, of course, respectfully, but I'm just saying that a lot of these dudes don't feel like they're not seeing the implication of what the lyrics that they're spitting. They're like, hey man, everybody is talking. That's what we do. That's the culture right now. I did it. I did it. I did it this way. I did it with this gun. I did it on this date. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's the culture.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, whoa. Considering the fact that there's always been great scrutiny on the culture and particularly music, hip hop music, why put yourself in this position? And I'm talking to the little black artists. I know you want to tell your story, brother.
Yeah.
But you put yourself out there in a very, very foolish way.
Yeah, it wasn't foolish 4 months ago. It wasn't foolish 4 months ago. There are so many artists that are making money from this, don't even live the lifestyle. And it was not foolish 4 months ago because there was no repercussions besides real people checking you and seeing if you really about what you say you about. Now it's attorneys checking you and seeing if you about what you say you about and giving you time for it.
Let me go to. Go ahead, Timmy. I'm sorry, bro.
Nah, man. Is as I think about it and I sit and I think about the progression and how much work ethic it takes in order to make it in the music industry, like to get to where Young Thug was. I remember when he first came out, I was like, yo, he sounded like Lil Wayne. I wasn't feeling him. I still really don't, but I don't hate anybody that's making money and providing for their family. He put a lot of people on, a lot of people out of his community on, right? And now, so a lot of people take that model, reproduce that model in order to put their friends on. Now that's an infrastructure that is no longer viable. Now what are they going to do?
Now what are they going to do? All right, let me take a couple of folks that are checking in from our online culture crew. Jimmy, people are just sharing their thoughts, and folks continue to keep your thoughts going as we have this conversation. Mike V, my guy, you said you can't use the artist's lyrics as they are protected under entertainment license and the First Amendment. If that's the case, our constitutional rights are gone then. What you say to that, Jimmy?
They didn't give Young Thug no bond. So it has changed. They have obviously found a loophole. His lawyers would at least got him a bond if it was on false pretenses. So it's two things in that. They're using his lyrics, of course. They're using his lyrics pretty much as dry snitching. That's unfortunate. I forgot the question, but it's unfortunate, but it's true.
Are you surprised that a Black woman is leading the charge on this and down in Atlanta?
No. No. It's a red state, man. I'm from a red state. Like, no.
Hey, we got to let people know, Jimmy, you from Florida.
Yeah, I'm from Florida, man. Like, hey, look, listen. You are collateral damage when somebody want to get ahead. You are, no matter your color, your race, you are collateral damage.
Damn.
So she will soon be state's attorney and the state of Georgia. If this case goes through, her career is going to rise. Young Thug is collateral damage. No, I'm not surprised.
Wow. That's as they say, that's the realest shit I ever heard right there, boy. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And you know what? And we got to take a quick pause on this, but I want to kind of, I'm gonna share with everyone what is being done on the other side to push against this in terms of some of the policy. Superstar attorney Alex Spiro, who is the attorney for major hip hop artists, including Jay-Z, Meek Mill, and 21 Savage, is a part of a coalition of attorneys that is actually pushing against this from happening. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, more conversation with Jimmy Thomas, and of course, more conversation with you folks. Stay with us. We're asking the question, can lyrics or should lyrics be used against hip hop artists when they get in the hot water? I want to continue to hear your thoughts on this, and we'll continue to talk about it on the other side. So stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking to Jimmy Thomas Jr., founder of Curators of Hip Hop, which is a hip hop organization that's doing its work of empowering young people to use hip hop and writing music as a form of expression, but it also helps to educate many people about the power, the influence, the impact that hip hop can make, the positive impact that hip hop can make on a community. We've been talking to Jimmy as we've been having a conversation about a big question: should rap lyrics, be used against hip hop artists when they find themselves in hot water? An Atlanta area prosecutor is citing rap lyrics as evidence, which hip hop has long decried as a double standard, as people who are advocates of the culture are saying, well, if you start to use hip hop lyrics as evidence, then you got to look at rock and roll. You got to look at acid. You got to look at hard rock, heavy metal. You got to look at country music. Yes. Yes. But guess what, folks? Guess what? And I want to bring my brother Jimmy back into the conversation. Guess what? It is a double standard because it's not the same, folks. Why do we keep banging our head against? Hey, Jimmy, we bang our head against the wall and say, well, why don't they do that for this person and that person? Because we black.
Hey, I didn't know if you was going to say it, Farajii. Hey.
We black.
People ask me all the time, why you left Florida? I'm like, yo, have you ever been to North Florida? That shit is South Georgia, South Alabama. It is not the same as Miami, my friend. No.
That is not Disneyland, buddy, but Disney World.
Nah. I want to go where they look like me and they love me. You know what I'm saying?
Man, let's just keep it real. We black, bro. So we got to look at it. All right, so here's the thing. Here's the reality. Now, as much as we're talking about this, there are a group of prosecutors and attorneys that are pushing back on this. Alex Spiro, whose clients, check this out, and Keenan and Ariel, let's post this, whose clients includes Jay-Z, Meek Mill, and 21 Savage. 21 Savage, he sent a letter this year to the New York legislature in favor of S7527, which is colloquially dubbed the rap music, let me make sure. Okay, yeah. The rap music on trial bill, the proposed legislation which passed the Senate in June but has yet to navigate the state assembly, would limit the quote admissibility of evidence of a defendant's creative or artistic expression against such defendant in a criminal proceeding. Here in California, lawmakers passed a similar bill this year requiring courts to, quote, consider specified factors when balancing the probative value of that evidence against the substantial danger of unique prejudice. It awaits the governor's signature. So across the country, there's trying to create some policy to protect artists and their lyrics, even though First Amendment is all well and good. But when you're talking about criminal proceedings, when you're talking about and this is a culture that glorifies violence, this is a culture that glorifies illegal activity, right? Along with the misogyny and all of that other stuff. This is very serious. Yeah. Hip hop is on trial. And now, if people remember, and I'm sure, Jimmy, you can give us some history on this, the rap police, the rap patrol, as they call them, right?
Yeah, in New York.
This was a group of police officers in New York City, folks, who were assigned, this is all they did. They were assigned to follow and to surveil and provide surveillance on hip hop art. That's what they did, to make sure to see if these hip hop artists are basically keeping it real, and seeing if they get themselves involved in illegal activity. So right.
Yeah.
Right. So we're looking at a situation, brother, that I think speaks volumes about where the music is going, and more importantly, where the legal system is going. We already can talk a little bit about the RICO Act. You know what I'm saying? Like and I see a lot of artists are coming into, especially when they're coming into the industry now. The industry has changed dramatically. So it's not just one artist. You're going to get 6 or 7 different artists with your one major artist. And in the RICO Act, if you got 3 or more, baby, you operating a gang.
No,
you operating. You might as well call yourself a mob. And we're doing this. And so my hope is maybe, Jimmy, that because of all this heat, that maybe this will force artists to rethink their brand, to rethink who they got around them, to rethink what they say. Do you think that's going to happen?
Depending on how much time Young Thug get.
Wow.
Because you got to think about it, right? If we talk about the drug war, you know, from the community I grew up in, you knew 1 or 2 ways you was going to end up, you know, dead or in jail, you know, or if you're able to make it out, then you're not going to really have no money. I haven't seen anybody make it from, you know, well, it's very rare. It's very rare. And people still do it continuously, you know, because it's a way for means right now. I work with youth, man, you know, so it's hard to tell them that, you know, don't talk about that or don't talk about this when they see people making money from that, until they start seeing people make money from talking about the positive things in their life or making it through struggles. And, you know, that's their main focus. That's their whole image, you know, like being positive, you know, that only works for white rappers.
Like Eminem?
Like
BC
Logic.
Boys?
Like Logic. That's his whole model. You know what I'm saying? Let's be current. You know, I did the documentary on him, me and my business partner, and that was his whole thing. So white people came out and wanted to be a part of love, peace, and prosperity. Right now, if we can get some artists, not only artists, but we really have to purchase their stuff and they be able to survive off that. Right now, what if we got a Grammy that for art? Do you know that it was just passed like by the Grammy board for an award for people who are making, I don't know what it's particularly called, but pretty much movement music. Like this just got passed over this past year, right? Mahmoud Yusuf here, Wayne, there are a couple of artists that's sitting on the board who made that happen, sitting on the DC chapter board. And I know because I'm a part of the DC chapter and I'm doing a doc on Mamuna, but this just passed. Think about it. It's 2022. We just got an award for movement music. It'll be announced at this next upcoming Grammys. But 2022. So we talking about years of, awarding stripper culture, gangster culture, and all that until those levels are even on the playing field, then you're gonna continue to get what you see because that's what's making money.
So that's a plus then. What you're essentially saying, Jimmy, it's a plus that artists, and big shout out Mumu Fresh she dope. She dope.
Yeah.
Y'all don't check out Mumu Fresh. That's my sister. Growing up with her in Baltimore, seeing her humble beginnings. Her family is a wonderful, beautiful family of just devout Native American healers and believers. And her mother, the great mother Natasha. I mean, she just comes from such a powerful place.
Right.
But her music is absolutely moving. You know what I mean? And so I would definitely see her for winning the inaugural award for something for her music. I mean, you still got many other sisters out there who are just doing dynamic things. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a plus for the culture.
Yeah, it's definitely a plus for the culture, but we have to publicize it, right? When it's announced and everything, we have to publicize it, we have to push it, we have to let young people know, and in order for everybody, because right now, a regular, like if you're in the Grammy chapter, you can't vote on it. It's like the trustees vote on it and they still don't know what the criteria is for it. So it's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that, and it was pushback, for it as well. But white people being white people, so
white people being white people. Hey, look, go ahead.
It's just like it shouldn't be a fight. What are we fighting for, really? What are you saying? Music hadn't been made in that vein, like Lil Baby song that he performed on the Grammys, which he did not win the Grammy, and had the most selling album that year, is Bigger Than Black and White. He didn't win the Grammy. I don't even know if he was nominated that year, and he had the highest selling album that year, but they asked him to perform is Bigger Than Black and White because you got those Grammy members, their kids are out protesting and they're having conversations now, so what it is, Farajii, is a step in the right direction. What's going on with Young Thug is very unfortunate. As you were talking about Mumu's upbringing and her background, that's why the world doesn't know who she is, because she has such a strong and deep-rooted background and family to where she stands on her purposes. Not everybody's strong enough to do that. When you're hungry and you ain't got nothing to eat, like, you're gonna make some decisions that's not best for you, and it's not best, but your stomach eating your back.
It is. And so even, and Mike V checked in and brought up this point, when we start talking about lyrics, I think one of the big questions we do need to add, and Mike brought this up, do we go back to like Snoop Dogg when he did Murder Was the Case? How far back do you go? You know what I mean? Is there a statute of limitation on that?
It's which is why older rappers are stepping in. Like,
because Jimmy, they pretty much stepping in. They like, boy, don't come after me.
Hey,
look, boy, I was a young man when I wrote that.
Hey, that was a lifetime ago. But hey, like real talk, it's unfortunate, but like this is the point to where there are some points in time where things happen where everybody just got to come together and push forward to what's right, no matter what your beliefs are. This is because Kevin Lyles owns the label 300 that YSL is signed under, right? So it's his job and his duty, to get Young Thug and Young Gunna off That's his job and his duty. They are under his labor. They are his responsibility. So he is, pretty much pushing in order to help get them off, and it's not really getting any traction. Like he tried to start a hashtag and he tried to, call to action, but not a lot of people jumping on board because they don't want to get in that water with him. And
Dang.
and it's scary, but at the same time, it's like people are going to really have to change up the way they do things, the way they move, and really look at who they're with, because you are a target,
Dang. And for those who aren't familiar with Kevin Liles, this is a Black man. He's from Baltimore. He was mentored by Russell Simmons,
legendary.
legendary Russell Simmons, and he has been, when you think of some of the top artists of our generation, Kevin Liles and Russell Simmons, and have been in the room along with our late brother who just passed away. His name escapes me at this moment. But when you're talking about Black music and culture, they've been in those spaces. They've been in the room. They've been shaping the sound of Black music and culture, right? So then, as him being a Black man in a very powerful position, then he would have to think twice and say, okay, this thing could come knocking on my door because I'm, quote unquote, creating a pathway for this music to be heard, to be sold.
Get out.
I'm encouraging this because this is what the culture is wanting. And here's the other part about this, Jimmy, because I said this before, that people act as if we don't have like they don't have the power to determine what the artists put out. You said it earlier. If we were to support, quote unquote, Black music, more empowering music, quote unquote, right? If you support the Moo Freshes, if you support the Rhapsodies, if you support those voices that you believe is adding to the culture, then we wouldn't be in a situation that we find ourselves in. So how is that? How do we shift the balance? We don't want to destroy the artist and his expression, but then we do want to say, hey, your music may not be the best thing and it's not the healthiest thing for my Black son and my Black daughter.
Yeah. Farajii, even as I think about, you saying that, it really has to be a testament to the person, right? Like, I'm sure your viewers on here, like, I'm reading what they're saying and stuff. I'm laughing, are they going to get Snoop? Are they going to get Too Short? Like, these are the people that we grew up on,
right.
I grew up on, like, I started listening to lyrics from Trick Daddy. I'm sure I've told you that. Like, I was raised by my uncle. My father was on drugs, so I was raised by my uncles. And I'm from Florida, so we didn't have a back seat in their cars. It was speakers back there. I sat on the seat that your bottom sit on, and my back was on the speakers, and I got Too Short and Trick Daddy all in my ear. But what I did have was my uncles telling me what was what and what was real, and those artists wasn't my only teachers. So when it comes to lyrics and it comes to music, I now think about, like, with my kids, right, what I'm listening to in the vehicle, because they're listening to it too. They're taking it in, they're dancing, my 1-year-old up to my 14-year-old, and then how are we supporting them?
Yep.
When we find those artists who are dope, like you said, Rhapsody, Rhapsody out raps a lot of rappers. I was so surprised that she signed the deal with Rock Nation, right?
I saw that too.
I was so surprised, but I was so happy because it tells me in the direction that Jay-Z is taking his company. He may not have been the person to, say, yeah, I'm gonna do that because Guru and Knife Wonder are really close, but he definitely could have said, nah, I'm good too, So it's diversity. So you gotta have some, some street stuff, because I definitely listen to it, but you also gotta have some stuff that will awaken you as well,
Yeah.
And once we start once we people, period, who love music, connoisseurs of music, once we start really supporting these artists, then you'll know, like, you'll see the change. Because, all right, and I keep saying Mumu just because I'm working on the dot with her, I know what she got going on. She partnered with Able Creations, Melissa Mitchell, who's an artist who designs clothes, right? And like sportswear. They partnered for a like dope sweatsuit. If people went and bought that, now she can hire somebody on her team that'll help her with marketing. Now she can hire somebody on her team that can help her with production design, set design, and all of that. So you got to understand how the money flows. And when the money is flowing towards, ratchetness and what's degrading to our community, then you can expect to keep seeing it. But until we start buying it, sharing the music, saying this is dope, it won't change. So, if you want to be a part of it, be a part of it.
And then that's the other thing. Like, at the end of the day, Jimmy, you know what I'm saying? I want people to at least walk away from this conversation being informed, saying, like, there is an attack on Black artistic expression. For sure. But at the same time, we have the power to shift the culture. Like, and I never always go back to what Mos Def said on his album. We act like the culture is something, some animal, something that lives up in the hillsides, or you know what I mean, outside of us.
Yeah.
When we're the ones that determine the culture, right? Now, yes, of course, you got the record companies. They determine, they tell you what's in and what's not in, what's cool, what's not cool, and all of that. But you mean to tell me that an institution, it has the power to teach you what to think, how to think in modern 2022, when we have all of this knowledge and culture and history to rely on? You mean to tell me somebody can teach you or teach your children what to think about your expression? Now, this ain't about like school. This is music. And if Black folks, we know a lot of things, but the thing that we are damn sure experts on is music.
For sure.
And sports.
For sure. Hip hop is the highest grossing and highest consumed art form of music in the world. Like, we've interviewed artists. Hip hop is, yeah. We've interviewed artists in Tokyo. Yeah, the culture just itself. Look, I'm sure you know, Farajii, like, this upcoming Olympics is the first time that breakdance is going to be a part of the Olympics.
Wow, I did not know that, bro.
Yeah. So think about it, right? The last Olympics, they had like some small things with like Junior Olympics with the kids, right? So this upcoming Olympics is the first time that, breakdance is going to be a part of it. And it's a testament. Now, know this as well. The person that wins probably not going to look like me and you, but that's because they are really practicing dance. Dance is a universal language. That's why Red Bull is doing their tours internationally, So yeah, man.
So once again, our culture, our expression, and look, I'm not one of these guys that is like, no, we should keep it in house. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole purpose of culture is influence on all people, right? It should go out there.
Yeah.
But there does need to be an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
That we were the originators of this. We was the origin of this.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as the acknowledgement is there, I don't care if you got an Asian dude, white boy, if you got anybody, I don't care.
Yeah.
But just know, in New York City, they were breaking.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They were doing it. It was from those boroughs, those Black folks. And I'm sure Latino brothers and sisters were in that thing too, because it's all rhythmic. It's all rhythm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it just speaks volumes, bro, about where we are. As we wrap up this part of the conversation, though, Jenny, I'm wondering, we talked a little bit about this earlier. Do you think that you said that if Miss Willis out of Atlanta is able to get a conviction or able to get some type of something that works well for her office as the prosecutor by using these lyrics, do you foresee a domino effect? We talked about California. Do you see that happening in Florida and other places?
Listen, I don't even want to talk about Florida, but for sure, because you got to think about it, in Florida, they're not even letting teachers talk about, African American history, real history, so Florida's just,
right,
centuries behind. But yeah, it's a domino effect going to happen, and really, like them not giving him a bond and taking this thing all the way shows me like he's going to have to do a deal. He's going to have to do a plea deal, really. Now, I'm no legal expert. I know a little bit how the court system works, but I'm not a legal expert. But him not receiving a bond because they say he's a flight risk, and it's just really, really scary for a lot of people in the music industry. And I hope that people, one, realize the impact of your words and the power of your words, and two, the influence that you have, right? Because if he was talking about, building up community and actually doing that, then, he may not have been such as a high target, but it's the opposite. And he's going to be made an example of, unfortunately, really, unfortunately. And hopefully this will push, which it won't, hopefully it will push labels in the direction of, let me go and find somebody who's dope and, talking about positive things and push them out, put my money behind them. I wish that would happen, but we can't wait on that to happen, which is why we created the youth initiative you was talking about, the Media Rhythm Institute, where we training young people how to be media and entertainment entrepreneurs, like use your voice, learn how to get money from your voice. And then once they graduate from us, they don't have to go in the music entertainment industry, but they'll know how to stand on their own and be who they are, rather than trying to be somebody they're not, or going in a direction that's less likely for them to succeed in life as, responsible human beings.
Absolutely. Well, Jimmy, it's so good that we can at least have this conversation, because my hope and prayer is that those who are tuned in today will at least further the discussion. But just know, folks, the industry and the culture is evolving. And there's going to be, I think this is going to cause a lot of artists to be much more cognizant about what they put out there. They're going to be more careful, the level of accountability. And I know that there are artists behind the scenes like Jay and other folks that are like, yo, we got to smarten up on this situation, because we are living in a time where, as much as we want to hold on to it, and I think it's one of the most important freedoms of this country that has really, in a lot of ways, the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, is a divine gift, right? Not every country that you go to, even in this modern day and time, will allow you to say what you want to say in the way you want to say it and not get your head chopped off. That's not that. I ain't talking about just in the Middle East. I'm talking about any other places like that, right? So this is a divine gift for us to have that freedom here in America. But then to use it responsibly, that's the big thing, to use it responsibly. And I think that this situation that we find ourselves in, especially with our artists and around lyrics, it's gonna force us to have a different conversation about how to be responsible in this whole process. So Jimmy, thank you so much. Big shout out to you. Hey y'all, if y'all did not know, Curators of Hip Hop, I wasn't able to pick up the award, but they blessed me with a fantastic award as being one who has added to the culture. So I wanted to thank my brother Jimmy, all of the great people at Curators of Hip Hop for acknowledging me for the work that we continue to strive to do to put this thing out there on a different space. Got to get that award, but I at least want to say thank you, brother. And just as much as y'all awarded me, I said, you know what? We got to have more conversations, because you've been doing this work for a very long time, Jimmy. But more importantly, the work that you're doing in teaching, training the next generation of artists and thinkers that love the culture. That's brother, that's invaluable work right there.
Oh,
That's
man.
invaluable work. So, I thank you for everything that you're doing. Big shout out to your team, my man Dev Rock, everybody. Big shout out to Tiff, everybody for doing the great work that y'all doing in Baltimore and around the country, man. But we'll certainly bring you back on, Jimmy. We certainly got to have more conversations with you about the culture, all right?
Salute. All right, man.
I appreciate you, brother.
Yes,
Talk to
sir.
you soon. Jimmy Thomas, founder of Curators of Hip Hop, checking in. Yes, sir. Folks, man, oh man. Wow. I hope y'all enjoyed that conversation. I really did. I hope y'all enjoyed the conversation, and y'all make sure that y'all continue to have the discussions about this, because I think we're going to see some other stuff coming out of this Young Thug case. And more importantly, I think there's going to be some real resistance around, making sure that we don't penalize Black men and Black women for the things that they say in an artistic way, because it's going to open up the floodgates. It's going to open up the floodgates. All right, as we wrap up the final few moments of the show, Keenan and Ariel, let me know if we can. I know that there has been some footage that has been running and streaming right now for a couple of different things. One is, if you haven't heard, and this is part of the trends post and doing the most, the Obamas are back at the White House. Today they had the opportunity of getting their presidential portraits unveiled. And so they just had a ceremony earlier this afternoon, and to show that they are officially, ingrained in the history. We already know that they were going to be in the history, but their portraits have been revealed today. So take a look at this here, folks. Look at that. Look at that. So y'all going to be seeing pictures of that picture probably everywhere right now. And big shout out to President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. Some of y'all be like, no, that is the president. Ain't former, he's still president. Now, he ain't president of this. But big shout out to President Barack Obama, man. And look at those pictures. Absolutely beautiful, stunning, and speaks volumes about Black excellence in the White House. Regardless of how you may feel about the Obamas politically, one thing they brought to the White House was a sense of class, sense of grace, sense of excellence, and intelligence, great intelligence. You know what I mean? Black Michelle Obama, top of her class, or President Barack Obama, top of his class. Understand, and it's just a lot to say about them. And I don't think Black America, we want to ever not love the Obamas. We may not always agree with them, but who they are as human beings and what they represent is a different conversation. I think that that is happening. So big shout out to First Lady Michelle Obama and President Obama for them being engraved into history in such a major way like this. Oh man, congratulations. We got some good stuff streaming right now where Brother Roland is, we just did a media deal, and I'm saying we as Black Star Network, we just did a media deal right now. And I don't know, Keenan, if we can just kind of do a little bit of just jump in on any type of streams with this. But this is, let me see. Y'all got to my team. I want to make sure that y'all help me out, because we got a couple of things streaming right now on blackstarnetwork.com. And this is why it was important that we always say that that y'all check us out as we having these discussions. But this is streaming right now. This is a new HBCU media collaboration that's being done with Black Star Network, and making sure that HBCUs, it's a breaking announcement that we are now going to be working with Urban Edge Networks, and we have signed a historic media rights deal with the HBCU-centric Gulf Coast Atlantic Conference. And Keenan, let's put that one up on there, bro, on so folks can know exactly what this is all about. Thank you, bro. But we are working with Urban Networks again, folks. and Urban Edge Networks. Who's speaking currently is Mr. Todd Brown, who serves as the Chief Executive Officer, co-founder at Urban Edge Network. And who that dude up there? Who that guy up there, y'all? Uncle Roro, Roland Martin. This is happening live, if I'm not mistaken. Is this live right now, Keenan? Ariel, let me know. Okay, this is happening live. So, this is major for us as Black Star Networks, and big shout out to Brother Roland and to the team to make this deal happen. But it will bring us steps, not just 1 or 2 steps closer to telling our story and pleading our case, especially when it comes to these HBCUs. Here at Black Star Network, we always do our due diligence to make sure that HBCUs are not forgotten and are part of the conversation. Can we get in some sound before we check out? I just want to hear what Mr. Todd has to say. Check us out.
We've always been the show since they put a camera on us. Now we're positioned to be in the media business and drive monetization on Black platforms with our fair equity share, and then we can participate in sharing that revenue with our partners. And again, I want you to remember, being seen on a platform is not a monetization conversation. We've been seen for a long time, but we haven't improved our institutions, we haven't invested, we haven't had the revenue share that puts us in a position where we can be Oprah as opposed to worshiping Oprah. So I really want us to understand that subtlety, and that's really important.
Yeah. Will?
3 questions. I'll let you take them however you want. When's your first screen on the student?
Right now. Right now.
Will all of the championships be on?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And give us an example of how this will benefit individual students and teams at these HBCUs.
You're gonna talk about Neil's? Okay, yeah, so I'll let him talk about
one of the I think early partnerships we did is with a company called The Athlete, and it's not spelled like you think it's spelled. And it was announced. Matter of fact, we think it changed the landscape of Neil. We gave everybody at Grambling on scholarship for athletics a Neil's opportunity. And it's done through a platform called The Athlete. And they're our partners in the Times Square announcement. And that allows not only for the technology from a compliance perspective, but also creates an opportunity for them to be monetized and get that money directly to the students. And so when I do a deal with Walgreens for a couple $100,000 for an 8-week run of commercials, I'm going to put a portion of that money into the NILS program that goes to the athlete, that filters down to the students, and based on their social graph, you got 1,000 followers, you got 10,000. I think Smash told me today that some of these band members have 3 million. Then they're going to participate based on that ratio. So we've done the work that now allows for every one of our institutional partners to have a NILS program that we'll be pouring into. And Hardy's already negotiating deals where they said, well, I want the volleyball team from XYZ, and I want to sponsor XYZ with them. Well, it's not just the institution, it's not just Urban Edge Networks, it's now that student. And that is not, you can go out there and look on the athlete right now. You will see Grambling's entire team. And I'll say this out loud. One of the transformational things we're going to be doing, I'm going to push to get our NILS program for the band. Now, the dancing girls on the band, they're trending. They run, but they're not participating. They're athletes as well, and they come from our institution, they come from our culture. So we're really looking at the HBCU culture, not as a gateway to professional sports, but a gateway to a professional life. Last thing I'll say, the deal that we just finished was with, I'll say it, with Intuit. And they're very interested about financial literacy. With one of our partners, they want to create a curriculum around it to overlay the curriculum that the folks have. And they think these students are going to be making money for a long time. And they're also going to be good customers and maybe even do TurboTax this year. They want to give them a tax problem. And so they're looking at these opportunities in a very strategic way. And so thank you for the question, but it's really about increasing the revenue share and turning the money around in our community and impacting lives in a positive way. Because media companies generally don't do that. They just say, hey, appreciate it.
Right.
See you later.
I'll just give you a quick example. So a couple weeks ago, Instagram, I got a notice from them. They were like, hey, if you do 11 million views, you can do 150 reels in the month and make a $1,200 bonus. That's 150 reels. That's 5 a day to hit 11 million views. Now, at that point, and I can always check it, at that point, we probably did 4.5. At that point of the month, we did 4.5 million views on YouTube, and we're at 40 grand. So here's what's happening right now. African Americans right now are TikTok, are complaining, whining, cussing the company out because they're not getting paid. We just understand when Clubhouse, who heard of Clubhouse? Yeah. Okay, y'all heard of Clubhouse. When Clubhouse launched, 9 months after they launched, the valuation was $4 billion. How did it get there? Black people. We over-index on phones, on pads. We over-index on social platforms. We have been hugely successful at making other people billionaires, and not us. So when I talk about this reprogramming, we're now trying to reprogram our HBCU institutions, the alumni, and the students. Because if you're driving all of your content on Instagram, Instagram is getting paid, not you or the school. If you're driving it on the other platforms, they're getting paid. It's one of the reasons why I'm an investor in Fanbase, Isaac Hayes III's app, because that's content driven. So we're trying to utilize this initiative to change the apps, to change the paradigm of how we monetize ourselves. To Todd's point, we know who the trendsetters are in music, in fashion, in everything. Now the question is, how do you get paid? Because other people are sitting back and they're like, we can create multi-billion-dollar companies on the back of African Americans, and we're the ones who are not getting paid. And so that's why we're having different conversations. So imagine if you have 1,000 students and you now get those 1,000 students to think as a collective when they are posting. So now you say 1,000 students, now what's the total number of followers they have on Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Fanbase, LinkedIn. Now all of a sudden you're going from 1,000 students that may collectively have several million followers. Now, how do you sort of drive that? That's what we're trying to get folks to think about, and that completely changes the game. And as I said, there is no other HBCU conference that is having this conversation we're having right now. Not one. Not MEAC, not SWAC, not CIAA, not any of them. This is why this is groundbreaking and totally different.
All right, folks, if you've been hearing the founder of Black Star Network, sitting down, Brother Roland Martin, CEO, founder of Black Star Network, sitting with Mr. Todd Brown, who is the CEO of Urban Edge Network, the co-founder and CEO of Urban Edge Network, as they're talking about inking a major deal, folks. Urban Edge Network, home to, and we could put this up there, and Keenan, if we can, home to the most high-profile HBCU teams and conferences. You're talking about this deal between Urban Edge, Black Star, the largest media rights deal in NAIA history with the Gulf Coast Atlantic Conference, GCHC, to be the official streaming arm of the league and to its members. Folks, all I can say is Black Star Network is moving forward. That's the only thing I can say. Black Star Network is moving forward, and we're not playing any games with anybody at this point. So your support, your continued support means everything. You can see the work that is being done. You can see the type of programming that is happening. You can join us on this live stream from New Orleans. You can just log on or stay logged in. But we appreciate every dollar. We appreciate every dime. But this is what we were building up for. So big shout out to making the deal happen between Black Star Network and Urban Edge Network. And folks, this is only a testament of your support, because as you heard Brother Roland say, this is on the backs of Black folks. Companies are building billion-dollar companies off of your and my support. It's time for us to have something of our own. It's time. And Black Star Network is stepping up to the plate. So make sure y'all continue to support us here at Black Star Network. Go to our website right now, folks, at blackstarnetwork.com. Show your support for us. More importantly, give as much as you can share the streams, share everything that the content that is coming out. And big shout out to my fantastic behind the scenes team, my control room. Thank you so much for working with us as always to make this show great. Big shout out to King Keenan, my producers, Shannon, Joel, Ariel, my fantastic culture crew. I want to thank my fantastic guest today, Jimmy Thomas Jr. I want to thank Dr. Gerald Horn and Dr. Melina Abdullah. And I certainly cannot thank you enough for making this show so special and what it is. Big shout out to my online culture crew. Y'all riding along with us. Y'all being there every day in spite of the ups and downs and the madness and the craziness, the technical issues and all of that. You tune in, and we cannot thank you enough for your support. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, the stream of Brother Roland Urban Edge is happening now. Log on to that, blackstarnetwork.com, to see that stream. And then stay tuned at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Thank you, family, and have a wonderful evening. Peace.